Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to walk you through how we integrate a chat site into SocialStream. So this is going to be more of an educational video than entertaining, like most of my videos. And so I don't quite recommend it for everyone. But if you're into JavaScript and me rambling for an hour, awesome. What SocialStream is it's a chat integration for like OBS. And really any platform. It lets you pull chat from remote social sites like YouTube, Twitch, into a consolidated dashboard of messages that you can then add to your OBS as an overlay. It also has featured chat, text to speech, bot action, now has relay chat modes. Lots and lots of options. I have like over 50 sites added, probably getting close to 100. Yeah. And normally people can come to the Discord and they can make a request in the feature request channel or in the chat overlay channel. I had someone make a request for live space. So I figured we might as well time. Now, normally I'll add a chat site by request like this. But there are some sites that maybe are private. Maybe you're working for a corporation and you can't let me get access. Or maybe I don't think the site is appropriate for me to add to any sort of public space. In those cases, you might have to add it yourself. And so for this is kind of for those people who have been asking, how do I add it themselves? Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to go to the site live space that was requested. I already created an account here. Right? You generally want to create an account at the site you're going to because SocialStream lets you send messages into chat. And so you need a user account for that case. So I created an account. The site looks like it's kind of buggy in beta. I won't judge. Okay. Anyways, there's one video. Looks like that's live. So I'll click on that. And definitely buggy. Yeah. Not sure what's going on with the site. I don't know what. Is that mute? Okay, there we go. Anyways, you can tell I already kind of put a message in here. Just making sure that I could do this for this video. And yeah, pretty basic. One thing that I will often look out for, let me move my chat over here. Make myself smaller so I can see my, there we go. Okay. One thing that we will often look for is a pop-out icon. And at the moment, I don't see any chat pop-out. The reason I like to add chat pop-out is because it kind of is like an explicit way of saying capture this chat. Maybe you're on live stream and you visit another channel. You don't want that other channel to automatically have chat captured. So I just normally do it that way. But for this site, I'm just going to not do that because there's no pop-out. Sometimes I'll add chat for the publishing section. So if I go to publish, the publisher gets their own sort of chat page. I don't see that here, so I won't add that either. So it looks like I'll be adding chat just for this section here. The way I get started is I just right-click the chat and I inspect. So right-click, inspect. When you do that, you get the developer kind of log console. We click on elements, obviously, and we can see everything that's going on. When I put my cursor over something, it highlights that element on the page. So this is a really kind of easy way to peek into the code. I wouldn't call this hacking, but you kind of get some introspective on what's going on. I'm going to right click the little icon here, and we see that it's an image, which is great. So I can get an avatar image if I want to. We see that there's a class name for the image, user icon, so that's good. It means it's very easy for me to target the image. If we zoom out a little bit here, we can see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 list items, and we see that each list item represents a chat element, which is also really good. Makes it easy for me to target individual chat messages. We can also see that the chat is well defined. So it has IDs for chat container, and the message container also has a sub element called messages. Perfect. There's no iframes. Sometimes the chat is within an iframe, and you'd have to manage that slightly differently. You can refer to some of the other integrations I have with iframes on how to do that. So yeah, this site should be pretty easy to add. I guess the only tricky part is the chat wrapper has the name, but there's no identifier for the name itself other than just a anchor link. But that should not be a problem. Okay, so we can add this site and there should be no problems there. So here's SocialStream. Obviously, you want to download your own copy. If you're hosting your own version, I'd recommend you fork it. So you create a GitHub account and then you fork it. This gives you your own copy of SocialStream. If you're doing a private integration, you might want to make your own private repo so no one can see it. But when you fork a repo, it means you can easily pull changes from the parent repo. So you can always stay in sync with my changes as needed as well. So if you have your own private version, you're not kind of limited to just your own version. You can kind of pull my changes in. I already have SocialStream installed with a GitHub repo, so I'm good to go there. So then what we need to do is we need to open up the manifest file. So I already did this. Manifest. I'm using Notepad++. So this is like a very simple text editor with some syntax highlighting for developers and such. Yeah, as you can see, there's always sites added. Some of them will mention iframes, all frames, and those are the ones that might be dealing with iframes. You can kind of refer to those if you need to see how I do iframes. But for the most part, most sites are going to look like this, where we just have a JavaScript file and a URL. And that's going to be no different here. So I'm just going to copy and clone pretty much everything from another site. So I'm going to name this, what is this site called again? LiveSpace. LiveSpace. The chat site is Watch. Okay, I guess that's the channel name. So I'm going to go here, put this in here. I'm going to put a wildcard at the end for the end of the URL, so the channel name. And I would expect beta to be a wildcard also. So let's put a wildcard there because it might be something in the future, like an app or beta or www. But I'm also just going to, just in case, make a second one that is just live.space.watch. So I think I covered future cases here. And so anytime you're on a watch page, it's going to start pulling chat. If you open up two chat pages, it's going to pull the chat from both pages. I'm not going to deal with that as a problem. This site isn't really worth the added effort to add like a toggle switch for a particular channel. Yeah. So then I'm going to copy these two URLs. And I'm going to add it to the permission list. So these are the permissions, kind of what the site is allowed, what the extension is allowed to access. And this is the injection logic. It's going to tell Video Ninja, or Social Stream, sorry, what sites it can inject its code into. And the code it's going to inject is livespace.js. There might be some cases you want to add the entire domain rather than just the watch URL. You might want to add the entire domain if it's if the site doesn't have like pages, if it's more of a dynamic responsive page, so one page that just constantly updates, you might need to then have the entire domain set, because you don't know when the injection point is going to happen. This injection only happens on page load, not really on page change. But if I look here, that might actually be the case. If I go here, for example, the page loads, and when I click here, the header doesn't really update. So this might actually be a dynamic page, in which case I'll get rid of the watch, because I don't know for sure. It's not worth my time to deal with that. I'll show you how we can have the entire domain work. Let me save it. Okay. Now we want to go in here and copy something. So I recently created Floatplane, OpenAI. Let's just go with Floatplane. It's a very simple chat site also, so it might do well here. I'm just going to hit copy, paste, get a copy and rename this live space. And now I'll open it. So I'm going to just clone that file, and I'm going to use it as a template and work off of it. More complicated sites, you might want to take kick.js or twitch.js and kind of refer to those. They have more functionality, but starting off with something like a very simple integration, something that's more recent, will give you the newest code as a template, and should not be too complicated. So we can review what we have here. This function I don't think we'll use, but it's there in case. An image is blocked by cores. So if an avatar is blocked, this will let us convert a link into an actual blob image, and then we can send the blob image over Social Stream, bypassing cores. We have some security functions, so this lets us kind of sanitize any input. This function is something that I'm just constantly trying to improve. I think I improved a little bit more in the recent. Anyways, I didn't. I think, what is it? I'm going to do if element, if there's no element, return response. There we go. Cool. So I just made an improvement to this function. But this function here essentially will go through a tree of elements, pulling out text and images as needed. So you can just kind of point it at a parent element and it will create the text for us automatically. And so I essentially have these core functions, and I constantly just improve them as I go along. So newer integrations tend to have newer code, and I'll go back and I'll update other extensions as I find security vulnerabilities and such. This function is also pretty generic. This is the core process function. So every integration has a processing element where I take the chat node for each chat message and I put it through this, and it creates the data blob that SocialStream takes. So this is kind of like the template of all the elements you can populate that SocialStream will use. If you can either delete the elements or you can leave them with it just empty if you don't intend to use them. It's up to you. And this part here is kind of where a lot of the magic happens that's customized per individual sites. We'll need to change these elements to target the individual elements. So we'll probably need to change this to some anchor value. This will need to be similar, maybe next sibling of the anchor, and this will be probably removed since I don't think we have colored names. But then we also have images, and so we'll have to add an element in for images since floatplane doesn't have images. This just pushes the messages to the extension. This function here just grabs the settings, tells us that kind of what we want to do, whether we want to be HTML mode or text-only mode, whether we want to capture stream events or not. We probably won't deal with that here. This is kind of the two-way chat. If the extension says send a message into the chat, we can use this function here. And then the rest of this part here is really injecting, kind of setting up the triggers of the injected code. So listening for new messages, determining if we want to do something, and then doing it. This is the observer for that code. So this monitors changes. Sometimes we won't use the observer, but most sites we will. And this logic here is just deciding when to start the observer. And we'll probably have to do some work here as well. Okay, so that was really all kind of boring. Let's start with setting up when to inject the code. So the code is being injected, but we need to kind of activate it at some point. When to set the observer to start observing changes. If we go back to the site here, we right click. We mentioned before that there's this nice element, messages. And I think that's a perfect element that we want to target for our observer. So we will probably want the observer to monitor that. Okay, and so the logic here will be, I'm going to keep watching the site until I see the element messages appear. And then I am going to take it and mark it as activated. So I'm going to constantly just monitor the pages until this has appeared. And the reason I'm just going to monitor it every couple of seconds is because I might originally land on this page, the home page. And if I type in document.get element by ID messages, we get nothing. But if I go into a video, and I type that same command in, we do get a message detected. So I know I'm on the right page when I see this element has appeared. So I mark it, and I do that so I don't inject the observer onto that element more than once. So if it's already been marked, don't kind of skip it. But if it hasn't been marked, mark it, and then we can continue on with the logic. So then I'll say the chat has been detected. We're now launching the observer. Okay, now this next part, it's going to be put on a set timeout. And the reason is just because the chat element has loaded, it doesn't mean the individual chat elements have loaded. So the elements might not have loaded, just maybe the parent container is loaded. So by adding a delay here, we're going to allow the chat time to load the chat. And I'll explain why we do that in a second. So set timeout, load this function. We're going to wait a second. Now a second has passed, and now we're running this function inside. And what we're going to do here is we want to look at this and say, we want to get all the li elements. So I'm going to say message, and then I'm going to say li, messages. Now I'm going to make mistakes, and I'll catch those mistakes later on when we run the code. So don't go OCD on me. If you see a bug, we'll catch it later. And so I'm going to select query all. So I'm going to find all the messages. And if you don't know how to do query select and things like that, what I'm doing here is messages and any subchild or any grandchild even that's also a li element will be kind of detected. And then I'll loop through each of them. So for each chat message, I'm going to mark it as skipped. This is kind of a bug, I guess, that's in Flowplane. I'll probably want to go and just fix quickly. It's not really a bug, it's just a development issue. I just kind of caught one. I don't really want to run process message. I just found a bug. Obviously, I might be using Flowplane. So I had it backwards. Okay, that's the bug. So we found a bug in Flowplane that I added the other day. No one uses Flowplane, so no one reported it, but fixed. So the idea is we don't actually want to trigger the process chat on the initial messages. Otherwise, every time you load or refresh the page, all the old chat loads into SocialStream, and we only want the new chat loading. And so the bug was, in my last minute effort on Flowplane, I commented out the wrong function. I wanted to comment out this one, not this one. Because this one's our observer, this one's the new messages, and this one's the old messages. Anyways, for development purposes, though, we actually do want it available, because every time I refresh the page, I want to see if this function is running right, and I don't want to have to spam chat. So I'll leave it like this for now, but realize when we go live, we want to mute this. And then the final thing is we want to insert our observer. So we want to start our observer element. The observer kind of looks for changes. Whenever a new element's added to the page, it kind of triggers. Again, we want the observer to trigger on messages. So I'll put messages here. There's different ways you can kind of start the observer. Most of the code I pass the class name or the identifier or the element name, and then I call the target here. But sometimes you could do all this logic down here and then just pass the target in. It really doesn't matter. If the target doesn't exist, I don't run the code, but it should exist. We just detected it. Although we are doing this on a timeout, I'm not going to account for that edge case. The observer runs, and yeah. So here's the target, and we start the observer on that. We have the observer looking at all the children as well. It's possible we could have it set to look at only the children, not all the grandchildren. But I'm not going to bother. This is just easier. And yeah. So what I'll do is whenever a element is added, this event is triggered, and it contains a list of all the new elements added. And I'm just going to go through all the new elements that are added. I do a try catch, just in case there's an error with one of the elements. I can just skip it without causing a problem with any future element. And just like down here, we're going to check to see if the element has already been processed with skip. If it has, we just continue and go to the next element. If it hasn't been, we mark it as true. So now we know we have processed it. And then we pass the element to the processor node. Sometimes you might want to say, if element is has tag name equals to li, and only process it then. That way you avoid processing elements that aren't appropriate, and we can do that. Like if we look up here, we can see that there's lots of different ways to specify it through a node type or a node name. So I can just kind of copy this reference code here and say, if mutation added nodes has node name equals to li? Li, yeah. Then we process it. If it doesn't have that node name, then we skip it. Now, I don't actually know if this is going to work, so I'll be testing this in real time once I finish coding everything and just make sure this actually is right. But I think that's right. If the node name is li, we're going to process it. If we go here, each of these elements are going to be injected. They start with li, so we should be good. Okay, that part's done. Before we get to some of the harder parts, I see that we have this chat focus part. This is usually an easy integration. We go here, and we can just send a test message. It worked. Sometimes if you do a text message, it will pop up saying like confirm the guidelines first. So I just want to make sure the chat's working. I right-click the chat box, and we see that the text box starts with a type a message, text area. Cool. I could go with the ID. Sometimes text area is just a better, more generic value in case they change the ID name. And I can always go here and say document.query selector all text area. Yeah, unfortunately, there's actually more than one text area, so I can't do that. So yeah, sometimes there's only one text area, and you can just use the tag name. But since there's more than one on this page, I'll actually just use the ID. Anyways, we'll go here and we'll just replace that with the name of the element. Okay. So the logic here is the extension will say focus on the chat, because I'm going to send you some keyboard input. And the extension, this injected code, is going to say, okay, I'm highlighting the text input, and I'm going to respond by saying, yes, I'm ready. And then the extension is going to fake user chat input. And it's going to then send the chat input and an enter button key and whatever else. And it's going to say, yes, okay, message sent. And that happens within an instant. So it will send, and the browser will not know the difference between, the web page won't know that you just faked user input. As far as they're concerned, it was human input. So that's kind of cool. Anyways, we're done that. We're done that. We go up here. Now we see that there's float plane. We don't want that. We want to call this live space. The reason we're doing this is the blob of data we're sending to SocialStream from this injected code. And we want to say where this chat kind of came from. What was its source? And it's live space. Okay, now it's important to know that the image, the avatar profile image for live space as a whole, this image here, this is going to be based on that type ID. So if I go here, we see that there's an image. I don't know what type of image this is. Save as. It's a JPEG. Shoot. Let's see if we can find a PNG. So I want to actually get an image of live space. Normally I go to the header, and they normally have like a PNG. Sometimes they don't. I want to be a big PNG. Maybe I can go to like livespace.png and just see if I get lucky. No. Okay. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to probably convert this from JPEG to PNG. It's annoying. Okay, most sites have this as a PNG, but okay, convert JPEG to PNG. Maybe there's a link. Perfect. I don't have to deal with anything. Okay. Convert to PNG. Save image. I like PNGs because you don't get that compression look. You get a sharper image, but whatever. Live space. .png. And I save it to the folder as well. Okay, so livespace.png, livespace.js, livespace, here. We kind of just have a common name for this integration. And the extension is automatically going to look for livespace.png. And it will be in the folder, so it will work. We generally want the size to be anywhere between 128 by 128 to maybe like 256 by 256. If it's too big, you're going to slow things down and cause performance problems. If it's too small, when someone does it as a featured chat overlay, it might not be sharp enough. Okay. Anyways, we're almost done. Now we just kind of need to do this part. We don't have any colored names, so I can just kind of remove that. Let's just get rid of that to make things simple. We do have a name. We do have the message itself. And we also actually have a chat image. So Flowplane doesn't have an image, but we do have an image here. So we'll do chat image, chat name, and chat message. We'll just confirm here that we have the avatar image, we have the name, and we have the message. So let's start off with the avatar image. Pretty easy. We're going to look for this is ideally what we're starting with. We're being passed this element from this function here, passing us the element. And this should be the li, so we know that we're at the parent. So we're here. And we see that there's an anchor and then an image. And we see that there's also a class name. So let's keep this pretty simple and say try chat image equals document.query selector image dot source. Cool. Okay. Now we should do source. I don't actually need to do this. This is just complicating things. Yeah. And then I'll do a catch. And I'm not going to bother with error reporting, but if there's an error, it'll be thrown. The reason I like doing try catch rather than trying to say, does this exist? Does it contain a source link? Is it's just making life complicated. If you do a try catch, if it fails, it fails. It's low CPU effort. Doing all these if check statements actually just is more overhead, at least in my mind. So I just do a try catch. If it fails, it fails. And no harm done. Right? So this should trigger what we want. Now I don't actually want to do document. I actually want to do element. And so what this is going to say is from that list element, any child or grandchild, whatever, that's by the name, that has the class name this, with its own grandchild of image, take the source from. And so if I take this and I go in here and I say document dot It should take the very first one, and it does. So we get an image link, so we know it works. This should, in theory, I think, be this image. Yeah. Okay. So that works. We have the chat image, and we have it now loaded here. We now need to do it for the name. The name is also not too hard. We said we have a wrapper, and then we have the very first anchor element with a strong. So I'll take those into consideration when making this, and I'll say it is a subchild somewhere of the element, and it's going to be an anchor within an anchor, and then within a strong element. So within the class chat raptor, within an element A, within an element strong. And there technically is a color, which is black. But I don't really think that's a proper color. So I'm not going to bother giving color names. Anyways, we're then going to do text content and then trim. So this is going to grab the text from that element, text from strong, which is video. And as you see that there's a space. And so I already have this added, because a lot of sites add spaces to the names outside it. That just gets rid of the white space on the edges. That's the name. And then just to prevent people from coming up with really clever names that can cause problems for the streamer, I'll just escape that. And then we have a name. Done. Put that in a try catch. If it fails, it fails. And then we have a message. Same concept. Let's look in here. The name, right click it. We can see that the name's here. Life's really easy for us. We have message chat body. I don't really know what would happen if we do an emoji. So let's put an emoji in here. Oh, the emoji goes straight in. Toilet. So this chat site's really basic, but here's an example where the emojis have its own little text node. Cool. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass this chat body in. I could just say text content and dump it in. But I'm going to use my fancy function here instead. I'm going to see what happens. So I'll put this here. This is the chat body. This is the element that contains the text, the two text nodes. And I could just say text content dump, but I'll use this a little more future-proof. Let's say if images are supported in the future, this will then support it automatically. Also gives me a little more customization. Anyways, in here I'm also escaping any text content. Sometimes I might want to add like a space between text elements. So I might want to do like plus space. And I can kind of customize this depending on how I want it to look. We also have a text-only mode. So if images exist, it will skip images and only do text. These emojis I used here are actually text. Well, this here, if you look at what they did for this image, this is an image. So if I did text content, the image would not actually get processed. Right? Since we have text body image, the image would be rejected. By using this, we can see that we go through and we say, yes, there's an image icon. we'll use the image. Okay, so yeah, we kind of have to use this function because there's images as well. And now there's really only one last thing we need to do that I didn't do. Float plane here is that we need to decide what messages we want to show or not. So I'm going to say if there's no message, if the message is blank, or if there's no name, I want to escape. I want to get out of here and not actually send the message, because there's not enough data to make it worthwhile to push that to social stream. There's no name or there's no message, so it's an empty. It's an empty message. Sometimes you want to make exceptions for donations. Sometimes if it's a stream event, it won't have a name. But in this case, it's all pretty simple. Anyways, name is being set to chat. Message is being set to the right element. There's all these other things here, like there's chat badges. This could be an array of badges. So SVGs are images. This is an array if you want to get badges. The background color, I don't really use that, but if you were doing like a donation, sometimes the background you want to be a certain color to amplify that donation. Or maybe it's a highlighted message, you want to make it yellow. Text color, name color, these are kind of like overrides. If you just leave it blank, the extension is going to use the defaults. Yep. Donation, this would be like 30 CAD, something like that. Or 30 bits or whatever you want. Has membership, same sort of thing. This would be like kind of what their membership is, and we'll identify that user as that type of member state. If you want, I could do like a Giphy, or if there's like a content, like a single large image you want kind of featured content image, will let you kind of make a specific single image larger. You just have to put the image source there. Yeah. And then for data, we'll just print the message to console so we can just kind of visualize it before sending it. We'll probably comment this out before publishing it. Anyways, everything should be done. Now we're going to go to the extension settings here. I'm going to close all this because it's just bloat. I'll refresh the social stream extension. After that, I'm going to open up a doc page so I can actually see if this works. And then go to console and then just refresh the page. So we see that social stream was injected, so we know it injected. When debugging, we can see that anything that says livespace.js is our code. That's not ours. And there's no .js. Cool. No errors thrown. And I don't know if that actually worked. It did not seem to work. We would have expected this to appear, and it did not appear. So set interval, try query selector messages. Let's clear this. That was detected. Query selector mesh marked. Was that marked? Set interval. Let me get rid of this. Get rid of this. Let's put this code in and just see what happens. I'm going to do an error. Console.error. Error. Let's actually do warn, so it's yellow. And I'll just say log. Let's refresh and try again. You might see the error. I'm kind of blind to it at the moment. Log is not defined. That's good. I'm an idiot. So we know that it is trying to do that at least. Debugging the code. Cannot set okay. So I have a problem here. There was a bug, and you probably all saw it, and you're laughing at me. Well, we figured it out. I didn't have an S. Okay. Let's go back. Try again. Console. Refresh. Let's try again. Wonderful. Wonderful. So I had one little bug. There might be other bugs, but it worked. This is the element. Each time an element loads, it pops that up. And this is what we're saying to social stream. So we have the image, the chat message, the chat name, the type. Wonderful. And now I can clear it and just do a test message. Works. Wonderful. Wonderful. It's working. One last thing I want to test is I want to test the response. So I want to see if final test. You see that there's a blue bar that pops up here? That's kind of unavoidable. I entered debug mode, which allows me to fake user input. But the benefit is sites can't detect then that I'm not a real user. And it has to accept my chat. But yeah, final test worked. So I was able to send a message in via this page as well. The images worked, right? No problems there. So yeah, this integration is done. I'm just going to go here and bump the version. The way I'm doing versioning at the moment is if it's a critical update, I'll push this major version. So this is kind of like if I think you need to update, I'll put that out. So if Twitch breaks, Twitch is a big enough integration that it's worthwhile for me to bump the number. And then this number here is more just letting you know that there's been an update. So it's more of a minor kind of nod saying there's a minor update. You probably don't need to update unless you want to. And this here is kind of like a major update. So this should technically be version 2 at this point in some sense. Because this is kind of like, well, I had an older application called Chat Overlay Ninja, and that was kind of like a different attempt. But yeah, version 2 essentially means it's like a breaking function. You need to update because it's a critical core breaking application thing that is substantially different. Anyways, that's how the versioning works in my mind. So if you see this update, you generally want to update. If this updates, you probably don't need to. Anyways, that's it. Now, you probably don't need to do this, but if you have your own forked version, we want to then add the new changes. We want to say commit support for live space. Who cares? And then maybe I'll do a git pull and then a git push. Boom. So we pulled the changes locally to make sure there's no conflicts, and then we pushed our code into the repo. And so if I go to GitHub and I refresh the page here, we'll see at the top that just updated. I'll just review my code changes. I forgot to actually unmute that. We fixed the bug for both floatplane and yeah, I'm going to have to get rid of that. So I find it's important to review your changes to catch bugs. We want to get rid of this because we don't want it to load on initial load. We probably don't need that. That can just cause spam in the chat logs. And then I'll just refresh again. I'll load this page. Load. Nothing should appear here. I should be able to type a message in here. Bye. And it should show up here. Cool. So we're done the integration. I'll just push that fix out again. Commit, clean up, git push. So if you are curious what changes I did, you can actually refer to this git commit. You can see the changes I did there, changes I did here, the images I added, and then the changes to the code. This is a pretty easy integration. Some of these integrations are going to be quite a bit more challenging. So they may not have class IDs or class names that make sense. They may not have element IDs. They might be using React.js and doing a lot of funky updates on the page loads. They might have much more complicated chat messages. They might have BTTV support, which is really hard to support as well. Anyways, this should cover, though, the vast majority of simple chat sites. You can refer to the other integrations I have to see how I might have solved other problems. But since I have a template, I can generally go through pretty quickly and solve these problems. Sometimes dealing with duplicates can be a little bit of an issue. Again, you can refer to the other integrations I have on how to do that. Yeah, that's the site. I am now going to do one last little thing. Let's go to the README file and say live space has been added. Live space done. Okay. Thank you for watching, guys, and hope that was helpful. I'm on Discord, discord.socialstream.ninja, if you want to talk about this.